Good morning and welcome to AM News Network presents the Morning Report with Rachel Baird and Ed Peruta. We're here every Monday through Thursday from 7 to 7:30 a.m. Also join us on Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. for our show Summary Judgment, where we're joined by Matt Tyszkka. Ed is on his way. He's handling master control this morning. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Rachel.
And how are you?
I'm fine.
So we have an FOI hearing today.
We do?
And what is this one about?
I don't know. Well, no, till I get there, but I'm sure that it has something to do with prompt access to public records.
Well, it has to do with Hartford, the city of Hartford, because we're doing the Hartford Parking Authority on Thursday.
I think it has to do with requests made to internal affairs and the policies that they have in place for making FOI requests and the bullshit answers they give, but I'll know more when I get there.
But did it arise from the whole issue of the ticket that you got at that one crime scene?
Possibly, yes. I think, yes.
Okay, so we filed a complaint on, I think, August 10th, 2015 against the city of Hartford. It was either August 7th or August 10th, 2015.
The Freedom of Information Commission is up against a clock. The clock being the 12-month rule or the 12-month provision where you have to hear the case within 12 months.
I got to tell you, I did not know about that rule, and I feel like I've had hearings that went beyond that. Is that new?
No, it's always been in place. And, you know, what they do is they wait until the end. Why?
Or maybe they have so many in between that
but they always seem to get them in before the 12 months. First of all, condolences to Dan Lynch and his family. He's going to be absent from the studio this morning and tomorrow morning. And, you know, he's got a lot of obligations, family obligations that he has to take care of. So, you know, bear with us.
Definitely.
Now, do we have anything else to talk about?
Nope, that's what I was going to talk about.
FOI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about FOI. I had reason to go through a box of old documents the other day. And it's funny that I came across an article from the Hartford Times, which is no longer in existence, from March of 1976. And it was the hearing officer, Herb Bruckner, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who was the first chairman of the FOI, made a ruling that the town of Rocky Hill had to give me what I was asking for. Now, I want you to think about something. The Freedom of Information Commission was formed in Public Act 75-342. And I believe that the act went into effect possibly either on October 1st or January 1st, 1976. I was one of the first complainants to go to the commission. I was one of the first decisions to come out at the commission. And when we go up there today, or we go up there to argue because they don't want to hear my case against Torrington,
that's tomorrow,
I am going to tell them that there is no one in the room who has more time with the Freedom of Information Commission than I do in the room. Nobody. Victor Perpetua has been there a long time, but he hasn't been going as long as I have, because when I started, he wasn't there. And you know that I have asked probably a dozen times, does the Freedom of Information Commission, when they have their meeting, have a section of their agenda, meeting open to the public? Because I wanted to go and address them about the way they were conducting their business for the past 10 years. They don't have a section of their agenda meeting open to the public. So I take tomorrow's, they don't want to hear my case. I'm not there to argue a case. I'm not there to support or go against a hearing officer's recommended findings. I'm there to talk to the FOI about their policies and procedures, one of which is to solicit a letter from the city of Torrington or to accept a letter from the city of Torrington asking that there be no hearing because they complied. Well, that's to be determined at a hearing.
My issue also with that whole process is that we didn't get a copy of that letter in September of 2016.
No, we did not.
We had no idea that there were plans behind the scenes to not hear your complaint. The first we heard of it was in July of 2017 when there had been plans since September 2016.
The circumstances as they existed at the time. I was a private citizen. I walked into a government building. I walked into the tax collector's office and I asked to access an identified group of public records that were stored in a computer. I was told that there was no public terminal for me to look into. Okay, pull it up and let me look at yours. Pull it up and print it out and give it to me to look at. But it was, I don't have time for this. I'm not going to do this. You're not going to get this because. And there was a hearing that night on the topic of the information that I was trying to access to look at.
Do you think this issue had anything to do with the fact that the city of Torrington is, I believe, the only municipality, maybe there's one other one in Connecticut, that hires a private person to handle tax collection?
But that's costing them big time now.
Oh, there's lawsuits going back and forth, and I know I had heard that the tax collector wasn't, the former tax collector, he left not under good terms, and he is, I had heard that there were documents he had that the city believed were theirs, and he had them in his personal possession, and then what does the city go out and do? They hire another private tax collector. What is it about the city of Torrington?
What is it
that they have to be so different?
What is it that the city of what benefit does the city of Torrington see in hiring a private tax collector
when no other municipality in Connecticut sees a benefit to that?
I would think that other communities would look at Torrington and say, what a great idea. We should do the same thing.
Well, until they see all the litigation.
Privatize.
See all the litigation that's going on.
Well,
I had another issue I was going to bring up after that, but now I forgot. But I forgot we were talking about FOI.
Well, I'm not that big on today, but I am big on tomorrow at FOI because they've got to be put in their place verbally on the record because of things that have been said to me in the past.
Well, and I think it also gives you an opportunity to bring up the other issue of when their Facebook, and not Facebook, but website page was inaccurate.
Right.
And the trouble that caused you, and how when you went to that hearing, you were treated as if you were just a pain in the ass, instead of somebody who had actually brought to light to the Freedom of Information Commission. If you think about that, the Freedom of Information Commission having a mistake on their website about how to obtain public information, it's serious.
Rachel,
you should have gotten a letter. You should have gotten a letter of thanks for bringing that to their attention. Instead, And I'll put it bluntly, the hearing officer, Victor Perpetua, in his attitude, in his demeanor, in his facial expressions, in the tone of his voice, treated you like you were a nut.
Right.
Like he wished people like you would just go away.
But let me, yes, their website was wrong, but their website was consistent with what they had been teaching record custodians in the state of Connecticut for years. I have said numerous times when we sit here that I went to one of those FOI training seminars just to see what they were saying. And they actually told people you had 4 days to respond to a request for prompt access. And after the meeting, I said, what are you teaching? You're creating hearing situations in the future. When you teach somebody something that's wrong, and somebody walks in and knows that it's wrong, they file a complaint, you have to schedule a hearing, you have to have it go in front of the full commission, and it loads up the docket. Now, I will tell you this. The Freedom of Information Commission has the ability to levy $1,000 civil penalties. And if the Freedom of Information Commission levied $1,000 civil penalties,
well, there wouldn't be a commission anymore.
The legislature would get rid of them in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Because there'd be political pressure from the towns. But
backlash.
Why? That is the carrot and the stick of the FOI. You can't. People go like this. Let me think how I can say this. I wanted information so that I could address the incident on Flatbush Avenue in Hartford on June 4th, 2016. 16. So I go into Hartford Police and I ask for information. And they wait 4 days to send out the boilerplate letter. We're looking into it. We're exploring to see what records exist and to see what's releasable. And then they do nothing until you say, what's going on? And then they send out a letter that says, could you be more specific? Your request is too broad. Could you be more specific? That's the second letter that comes. And so you sit down and you become more specific. And then they sit and they wait. And then they deny. And you know that they're denying information that's releasable. So you file a complaint. And the complaint's going to get heard 11 months down the road. Well, in September of 2017, the information you were looking for is stale. It's not news anymore. The story's gone. So government, by delaying access to information, controls the narrative of the news story because they know, government knows, that CNN found out, you do not go forward with a story unless you have the evidence or you have two reliable, confirmed sources to present the information to the public. And government has the ability to control the narrative by saying, what's going to happen to us? All we're going to do is go to an FOI hearing, but here's what we'll do. We'll wait till the news cycle's over, 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, 10 months, and then we'll give them the information and say, and the hearing officer say, well, they gave you the information. You want to withdraw your complaint? It's the way it goes. It's a game. And the towns and government agencies in Connecticut have gotten together and found ways.
And when you go to the FOI hearings, the government's never on the hot seat.
Never.
It's always as if the FOI and the government are sitting there looking at the complainant, and they're kind of, I mean, this is my impression, they're kind of both thinking, oh, what a pain in the ass these people are. You know, I wish they would just go away. And let's just get through this. Let's just get through it. And even if the government loses, it's never really looked at as, you know, shameful or a breach of the public trust or anything like that, because they always say, well, we're busy, you know, we were busy, not enough manpower, all this. That's always the fallback, and they're always forgiven for that. And you know, in a way, okay, if that's the way you want to do it, but don't look at the complainant as if they're a pain in the ass. They're just holding the government accountable for what the laws entitle you to. That's all.
Well, it's funny because I am aware of the fact that the brick and mortar mainstream media has basically stopped going to the FOI.
Well, look how they tried to skip the FOI when it came to the video of the Yukon woman who was killed by, you know, by the fire truck or by the emergency vehicle backing out of the fire station. They just skipped over the FOI completely and went straight to court. I got to tell you, what a slap in the face to the FOI. I mean, they had to save face in some way by intervening and saying send it to us, which it was sent. But
here's the situation. What news value will there be in the future for someone to obtain the video of the girl being run over by the Yukon fire apparatus? Where does that now fit into a story? You have to create a story specifically for the video, or the obtaining of the video becomes the story.
Right.
When in fact,
the story was
3 years ago. And the news media realizes that in some cases, the fact that you file an FOI request puts everybody's antenna up of what you're looking for, the story you're doing, and everybody starts scrambling and covering their ass. It really is a witch's brew when you go in and ask under FOI.
We need to look at that case that the Hartford Courant has filed seeking the video and the opposition to it. Because you have a case that's been filed against you for video that you put up of an accident scene that showed one individual who was already deceased and another individual who was taken to the hospital and died later. And you are being sued for bystander emotional distress, which I can't even begin to explain the theory on that. But the point I'm trying to get at is, why doesn't the state want to release the video of the girl who was killed at Yukon to the Hartford Courant? Why don't they want to release it to the Hartford Courant? Because they don't want the Hartford Courant to publish it. If the Hartford Courant promised not to publish it, well, why would they want it if they weren't going to publish it?
It's no different than my case in the Litchfield Superior Court.
Right. They don't want to release the pictures.
They don't want the precedent of it being available, because once it's given to the Courant, it has to be given to everybody. Let's go back 20 years.
But Ed, I don't understand what you mean by precedent. Haven't these things always been provided?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I have to tell you, I think it depends on who the individual is and what attorney they have on whether there is a hesitancy to release the video. You know, I mean, look at Sandy Hook. I mean, Chris Powell did an article for the Journal-Inquirer, which we haven't discussed, but he had an editorial, and I can't imagine the response he got to it. But he said that the Sandy Hook families of the victims have been treated differently. They've been given more deference than other victims. They were able to shut down a show. Was it on NBC? Oh, it was the Megyn Kelly interview, right? It was the Megyn Kelly interview. I wish I could remember. Was it Breitbart or Bannon or somebody? No, Alex Jones of InfoWars. Megyn Kelly was interviewing Alex Jones of InfoWars, and he was talking about the Sandy Hook conspiracy or whatever. I don't know. I didn't watch it. But that was not shown in this area. And Chris Powell, the editor of the Journal-Inquirer, did an editorial saying, how can a group
NBC 30
shut down a show like this for everybody? Because if it was another group that did not have so much influence and there wasn't as much deference that had been given to that group, then that would have never happened. And so I think it's the same way with videotapes of, crime scenes and evidence and things like that. It kind of depends on who the victim was. It sounds like the breach of peace case that came out of the state Supreme Court. It kind of depends on the circumstances, who the victim was, and all this kind of stuff, whether it's going to be released or not. But I find this whole argument great for your case, because if they don't want to release the video because the Hartford Courant is going to show it, or the Hartford Courant will have the opportunity to show it, I'll put it that way, that's why they don't want to give it to the Hartford Courant, then they are admitting that once it's in the hands of the Hartford Courant has every right to show it. That's why they don't want to give it to them. So you took the video on the street yourself, you had it in your possession, and you have every right to show it wherever you want to show it.
Government never owned my video.
Right. So you have every right to show it. And once the Hartford Courant gets it from the government, then the Hartford Courant will own it, and they have every right to show it. So I don't know how you get past that as an argument in your case. You have the video, and you have every right to show it wherever you want to, whenever you want to, how many times you want to.
The social value of showing a dead person hanging out of the wreckage of a car that went through an intersection at 106 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood at 5 o'clock on Father's Day Sunday morning.
With how many bags of heroin?
250, 500 bags of Hellboy heroin in the trunk.
We should get somebody to help us out.
Now I'm being sued by the passenger's mother, not the driver's mother. So maybe the passenger didn't know there was heroin in the trunk.
How would the mother know whether the passenger, whether he knew or not?
Well, no, but I'm just saying, there's no reason to believe that maybe the person who leased the car before them put the heroin in the trunk. I don't know. All I'm saying is this. It is a fact that there was an attempt by a Rock Hill police officer to stop the vehicle. The vehicle sped off in a southerly direction on Gilbert Avenue. By the time it got to the cross street of Elm Street on Gilbert, I guess there's something in the airbag column of the steering wheel that records the last 30 seconds. It always has the last 30 seconds. And they were able to analyze or extract that data from the car. And, I got a copy of the fatal accident report. It was going 106 miles an hour just prior to impact. Now, that's my neighborhood. My family members and friends drive on Gilbert and Elm. And it's a four-way flashing red with stop sign intersection. Those people were a dangerous weapon driving down the road.
I'll say.
those people were more dangerous to the public than someone openly carrying a firearm.
Well, of course.
Because, in essence, their car was the bullet, and it was traveling at 106 miles an hour.
Well, there's an actual criminal charge of assault with a deadly weapon, which includes a car. You know, I mean, if you're stopped and a police officer is at your car and you take off and you brush that police officer or you hit him or whatever, that's assault on a police officer with a deadly weapon.
Well,
a car is a deadly weapon.
The FOI is a shell of what it used to be. The FOI is a waste of taxpayers' resources. The salaries that are paid are a waste of tax dollars. They could put somebody else into that office space and not have to rent out someplace else. They're useless. Now,
you could hire a judge, and I don't know. I think we just read in the paper. You could allow in the budget for an extra judge $185,000 a year or whatever. You go to courthouses, and there's courtrooms not being used, so I don't think they need more space. And just have that judge hear FOI cases. That would
starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, 90 minutes per case.
That'd be less than the budget of the FOI.
A couple of clerks to help write the decisions, and they're very simple decisions. Give them the records or don't give them the records.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that should, maybe next legislative session we should put something together, and it's a budget saving measure.
It's ridiculous because we're not getting the records anyhow. And you don't have to file an FOI to get records. A lot of places you walk in, you ask for something, they give it to you. When you ask for it under FOI, all hell breaks loose. But then again, I don't walk in asking for crazy records. I go in because there's a specific reason that I'm looking for the records.
We do not.
And sometimes government doesn't know why I'm looking, and they explore through this denial and question and evaluate process. What is he looking for?
And sometimes when we ask for records, we think there's an issue, but then when we get the records, we're like, okay, now we understand. There's no issue here. Let's go on to the next thing.
Right.
It resolves issues sometimes.
Right.
I mean, the Torrington case, that resolved an issue. We thought there was a problem. We got the records, and we're like, okay, it doesn't look like there's a problem in this case.
Okay, we made it through today.
Well, we did. Okay, so join us tomorrow.
I'm going in there. Just why don't you, when I tell you to wrap up.
Okay.
I will stop recording.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. I am still trying to get the time to read that Third Circuit case. I want to thank our loyal viewer Ed for sending a link to me from the Batusi of the oral argument in that case. Ed Peruta and I started listening to it. It took the attorney from the ACLU the longest time to get started. She was shuffling papers, and one of the judges even said, "Take your time, we're in no hurry." And I don't know if he meant that sarcastically or if he was just being really nice, but I've never heard an attorney take that long to get started at the podium at an oral argument. So with that, we'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Hopefully more to report on that new exciting case out of the third. Have a great day. Bye.